The original idea came from Rick. He thought about this probably about 18 months previous to the release of the record, where he was, I think he was one of those where he was stuck in traffic, and he's often inspired by that. But he'd felt that we were at that point where we were about to evolve, and we were playing in a particular way. We had been for a couple of years promoting the Boku Fish album, and he wanted to document it. Just prior to that, he'd been given the opportunity by Strong Room in London to mix in 5.1 surround sound, and that experience, plus the fact that DVD was now available to us, it was affordable to both the artist and the consumer. That really kind of kicked him off with the idea of this was a medium that we could translate the immersive experience of a concert, plus being able to see the moving images on something that was high quality and affordable. It was the DVD that came first. Yeah, the DVD came first, and then the live album was a byproduct of it, as we realised that not many people had DVD players at that time. So it's like we'd be sort of cutting off a lot of people that'd be into it. We'd wanted to do a live album for some time though. Back in Reading years ago, the BBC did a great recording of the band that we were really excited about. But I think that was between Dub No Bass and Second Toughest, so we thought it would be a bit cheesy to release a live album so soon in our careers, even though it was really was a good recording. But as it turned out, this was kind of quite prophetic, really, that it was the end of the group as the three-piece and the beginning of something that Rick and I were evolving into. I don't know why other groups in our genre haven't chosen to do this, because there are some fantastic live groups that perhaps should consider doing it. I really don't know. Perhaps the same as ourselves, they think that they're not ready to do it, or they think it's perhaps a bit cheesy at the point they're at. It just seemed to suit us because of the DVD, and because of the fact that that we were on a roll. At that point, it was very easy for us to record, as it was, and the fact that we change every night. That we're the kind of group that's improvising every night, so every night's completely different. The idea of capturing a kind of an essence of that liveness that the DVD, I think, has anyway, perhaps became more obvious to us because of we were changing all the time. Oh, I think the Prodigy are a great live act, and I think the Chemicals have done some great shows. Orbital were always a real, favourite, warm the cockles of your heart. But there's also the thing that from experience of live albums from the past that we remember as kids. There live albums. There aren't that many great live albums. There are only a few that I can think of from my past when I used to be into rock music. And I'd think, wow, that was a great live album, because the band had taken the time to make something that you wanted to buy, and not just knocked off a filler, which is what they became eventually, wasn't it? They were fillers between studio albums, just sort of kind of buying time, really, because they couldn't finish the studio album. Oh, Made in Japan by Deep Purple. I went and bought that the other week. It's just a killer live album. When I read the sleeve notes, I just felt this is just an unbelievable album. It's still great. It still has that energy, and they did it for the right reasons. They did it because they were sick of the bootlegs and there's cheap recordings that were coming out, and they wanted to have some control over it. Also, I remember Dark Magus by Miles Davis, another classic live album. It's just fantastic. I'll go home now and I'll think about 20 others at the moment. The difference between a live album that's a filler and a live album that's fantastic. That's a good point, actually. That is really a good point. The live albums that I liked were always the ones that made me feel I wanted to be there, that were recorded really well, that had been thought out really well, that run in order, that the whole package of it was something that excited you about that group, rather than feeling that they were just inferior recordings of a live concert from somebody stuck in the middle of the crowd or something. Well, I've got a couple of really good bootlegs that are like that, but you accept that then. That's an odd question, I suppose. Quite interesting. I know that with this one, that this live project has held up our studio album. There's always something you can read between the lines, I think, in a band that that gets enthusiastic about their live album because they're trying to put a bit of a smoke screen around the fact that they haven't written anything yet for the new one. With us, it was more a case of it's actually held us up. The live sound recordings were over 2 nights. Was at the Forêt Nationale in Belgium and at Pink Pop in Holland, and then the concerts themselves, the filming of them were over. Yeah, you're right, a much longer period of time. Japan was pretty amazing. Japan is always pretty amazing, really, because they have a particular kind of frenzy to the crowds out there that you least expect. I suppose because of years of being told that the Japanese audiences would just respectfully and politely clap between numbers and perhaps cheer a little bit at the end. And their particular brand of mental is always a great experience. I remember that night as well because it was the filming that was done of the band by I think it was Wow Wow TV was beautiful. It was really, really beautiful. Things had gone wrong with the projection screen. Someone had laid power cables next to the video projector screen so that they all started to look like early video. They all started to get quite messy. And I remember being really annoyed when I saw this. And then afterwards seeing the film of the concert and going, that's beautiful. Can we do that again at all the gigs? But that stands out as being something that when we got the film back from the Forêt Nationale, which originally this was just meant to be one concert, the audio was great, but the filming of it really wasn't what we wanted. And there was a bit of there was a real downer on the project at that point, where we thought it was just going to be an audio project. But we dug around in the archive and we started to pull out things that we thought were really beautiful and summed up the band on stage. And it was the Fuji Rock concert that kicked it off, that we went, oh, this is really beautiful. Let's see what happens if we start editing to the sound, editing these images to the sound. And that kicked the project off, I remember that. Glastonbury was incredible because we walked out in front of 70-odd thousand people. And probably the largest crowd that we've played in front of that I can remember, like single crowd other than television, and they just disappeared up the hill. And we've been to that festival lots of times, and I've never seen a crowd just disappear up the hill. It's just they went up into the tents, and it was it makes it sound like they were leaving, doesn't it? They were leaving. Come back. But that was phenomenal. We'd gone on early as well. And so they were still coming in as we started playing. And just seeing so many people that had come to party, that was a really uplifting experience. I also remember at that point too that the front row, at somewhere in the middle of the show, looked like they were going to slip sideways, and it looked like there was going to be a bit of a disaster. So there was a moment where we were ready to stop, but they picked themselves up and the party went on. This is something that's probably more appropriate for Rick to answer. When I see what he's been doing, when I see what Rick's been doing with this project, I see that he's been doing something that's so much more than showing an Underworld concert. It's to do with what we're about and what we've been about really for 10 years. Not only is it about the improvisation, the spontaneity, these beautiful tomato images that we've been carrying with us for ages, the fact that we exist on several levels all at once starts to become more evident as you put the DVD-ROM into your computer, and this interactivity, the sort of sense of the gameness, the installation work that Rick and I have been doing for the last 5 years, and then the fact that the DVD-ROM has its own server from which you can only access through the DVD-ROM, and you'll be able to download the films we make, the new audio bits that we make, documentary stuff that we do, photographs, basically all the stuff that has been in archive and has been unusable really for the records because we've had too much material or because there hasn't been a medium to carry it. We've just been working simply with audio. What excites me really so much about the project is that it's a great summing up of a 10-year period, but also simultaneously it's a great stepping off point for what Rick and I have been about for a long time, and it's an unfinished project because you've got this this connection to its own server, let alone the connection to the websites. But the fact that it has its own server means the album's never finished, and artists have always got that frustration of it having finished it. They're thinking, oh, I wish we'd done so and so. I wish we hadn't done this. Or I wish we told people about that. Or we're playing so much better now. We can do something about that, and it's a constantly evolving project. No, it won't be storable on the DVD. It's just the DVD becomes a key, just a portal to unlock a server. But it's quite likely that you will be able to download stuff into your computer. We'll stream stuff, and then perhaps make it available on a CD-ROM or as a book or as a film or as an installation. We'll be able to make links. This is things we're talking about now, Rick and I, doing broadcasts from London, and with interactivity, because there's something that, again, Rick was discussing 18 months ago, is the idea of the shows evolving into events that would incorporate interactivity above and beyond sort of what was happening between us and the audience anyway, the natural rapport, but for people to be able to offer sound, text that we could integrate into the gig. Well, we can begin to experiment with that quite soon, within the next few months. We're thinking about text things first of all, that simple things about using email that we can see on screens, and then I can make a decision there and then whether I sing it or speak it, or whether we just type it in and the computer speaks it. But it's feasible that people could send us sound, and that we could integrate that into it. There's going to have to be some kind of editing in there, isn't there? Let's face it. We all know what's going to come down some few of those lines. But I find that it was quite a few years ago. I was in New York, and I remember watching public access TV, and you know how crappy that is. But it's also quite exciting as well that it's so instant. I remember seeing a thing, and it was a piece of video of a car travelling along a road, and while it was travelling along the road, you could phone in, and you had each number on your keypad responded to a sample, and it was really simple. They were very different samples, but you could just play it in a particular order, and once it had finished, you had like 5 minutes to play your piece. Somebody else dialed in, and they did their piece. I remember coming back and talking to Rick about it, and the pair of us getting animated about that idea. But it's not, we needed to do what we've done to get to the point where we could take that on board as a live band. We were in Japan a few weeks ago, and Rick and I were talking with Steve Hall from Junior Boy's Own, and three of us got very animated about the fact that Underworld now is just what Underworld is. It doesn't have to be a group that makes music in a particular genre. It is whatever it happens to be making. So the fact that it's just the two of us now means that Rick and I don't have to think about wearing different hats when we do different things. That if we go and work in a gallery, it happens to be that. If we put out a film, it's that. If we go on tour, it's that. And it can all be called Underworld. There are a few artists that have got that luxury. Well, like Brian Eno, for example. I think Frank Zappa had that, had those possibilities. There's something that subconsciously, personally, I was wishing for that, and I didn't really expect it to happen so quickly. Probably didn't expect it to happen at all. Always thought that Underworld would remain as a separate entity from the things that Rick and I were doing as outside or in parallel to music. And now this project has brought all those things together, and it's like it's almost too much that there's this potential, and we're sat there going, oh my God, how are we going to do it all? And it's kind of a bit like watch this space, because I haven't got the foggiest. How was it? It was, I have to say, that was, I've never seen a crowd like that before. I've never seen the look on the faces like that before. It was an incredible benevolence coming from the crowd. I've seen people that were up for it, mad for it, really excited, joyous, happy, all these sort of positive feelings that we get off a crowd. But there was a point somewhere in the middle of the show, I looked up and I saw some faces up on the balcony, and it was just like looking at your parents who were just kind of willing you on, saying it's going to be all right, it's going to be fine. Look, we're here, we're having a good time, it's going to be great, carry on. I've never seen that before, and you walk away with a feeling like that, then that carries you through an awful lot of any fears that you might have. Rick and I knew we could achieve that level of show, but we'd never done it. So having never done it, you still got these things going through your head, all the maybes, But after 20 years together, we've never had an opportunity to play on stage with just the two of us. So we felt, well, embrace the change, which is again something we've always been about, and enjoy it, and we have. Yeah. Well, we were always a bit huggy, weren't we? The three of us anyway. But it was. I remember coming off. We came off, and there were these two guys, and they must have been in their 40s, over on the side of the stage behind the monitor desk. And because we don't use monitors on stage, they got the day off. And from the second we started to the second we came off, they were going for it, mad, completely mad. And we came off, and they came rushing up to the two of us as we were stood there looking at each other, laughing. And they said, "Never ever give up." And it was like, "Oh, okay then." Yeah. We weren't thinking of it anyway, but seeing as you mentioned it. English, because of being that way. Japanese is an enormous market for us, and it's a kind of returning the favour, if you like, important to us. Welsh, because that's Rick's home language, and where we met, where I lived for 8 years, and got a soft spot for the place, and why not promote the old country? The one guys, the whole DVD ROM part of the disc was developed with Tomato Interactive, and they're very talented blokes who came out of a company called Anti-ROM, and these guys they design CD-ROM engines and web functions, interactive elements. And one of the things that they developed a while ago was the one geyser. It's simply put, it's a video jamming tool that by typing onto the keyboard, you bring up these loops of Tomato video images taken from the palette of video images that we had out on the road with us. And so a track comes up, I think it's Dark Train, which again was from the live recordings, and it's great when you see people play it, because I'm sat there and I'm typing and you're demonstrating it, and people nod their heads and go, yeah, beautiful. And you go, well, you type whatever you want in there. And you see them hit the keys and they go, oh my God. It's very simple, but it's a very beautiful thing. And the kind of byproduct from that is that you can take a feed from your computer into a projector. So you can take it into a club and jam to anything with it. And I'm sure it's gonna get bootlegged on a number of events, but why not? Give it away. I thought one of the first ones was The Last Waltz. Was it Scorsese who did that? And that was a pretty amazing piece of documentary. It's not exactly live concert, but it's close to it. Things like Purple Rain, that was kind of a development of a live band. That's a pretty monumental. Bob Marley, live concerts. It's quite a spread, really. I remember seeing. In fact, I've got it. I must get it on DVD. The song remains the same, Led Zeppelin, and but I always have to keep skipping through the bit, the fantasy bits to get to. That's just too much cheese for me. I don't know. That's why I'm looking forward to it on DVD. I can program that bit out. I bought Stop Making Sense the other day, and I always remember that as being a real landmark for me in the way, in terms of the way a band could present itself. And Talking Heads are always great at doing that anyway. But there's never been any thought of what this was going to be other than finished. You know, it was either going to be finished or it was going to kill Rick. And as it went along, it started to accumulate these bits. That sort of started to realise some potential that even Rick didn't understand was there in the beginning. And people have said to us that this hasn't been, this number of elements have not been pulled together before by a band, and but it was never our intention. It was just as people came along and said, "Did you know it could do this?" Or "Did you know, for example, that the Matrix DVD, when you put it in your computer, you could connect to the director and he could relate back to you, and he could unlock a secret part of your DVD and connect you to a website." And our eyes would go wide and we go, "Oh, we've got to do that. That sounds fantastic." And all these add-on bits would start to build up, which is consequently why it took so long, because each one of them worked, but as they were combined, sometimes they didn't work in combination. So there was a big learning curve for Rick there, finding how to pull the right people together to make these bits and pieces of his fantasy work. At the end of it, the byproduct was this thing that people say hasn't been pulled together before. That just happens to be a byproduct of near-death experience. Oh dear. It was probably JBO. It was led by them. They seem to have a pretty good ear for what we should do in terms of single releases. We're always left to our own devices in terms of the album. When it comes to putting out tracks to promote the album, it's a phone call away. And Steve's always got a list, and he's usually got an edit ready as well, because he knows that we're so busy that we need a kickstart. And it was his suggestion, and it was a good suggestion. Really good, yeah, really pleased. We've had some mixes done in the past that haven't always come up to the mark, but these we're pleased with, yeah, and which is one worry off our minds, because unfortunately there's just not enough time for Rick to do his thing anymore. We have to get on and make new things. Yeah, I'm very. I find it all very curious that there are people being introduced to our music for the first time. I remember, and intrigued. I remember going back to the first concert with the two of us at the Astoria. I remember looking up again in the balcony and seeing some people up there and thinking they could not possibly have been old enough to be at our first gigs almost 10 years ago when we were playing at the Ministry of Sound, or at Glastonbury as the Experimental Soundfield. They just could not have been there, and yet here they are. So when did they start coming? And this is a whole new set of people that are mixed up with all the other people that have been coming from day one. I find that really bizarre. I've never been in a group that lasted that long or was that appealing. It's what happens next? I don't know. Well, apart from expanding families and the shows that we've committed to do this year, Rick and I are getting on with another studio album and chomping at the bit, really, not really having enough time to spend doing that. Apart from that, we've committed to another installation, probably a tour of installations out in Japan. We did a thing called Dog Boy Headset here at the Tomato Gallery in London at the end of last year. That was intended to go out late this year, but because of our touring commitments, we've put that back to the early summer next year. And then there's a lot of web activity that really we sort of opened our fat mouths and promised that when this DVD is released that there will be all this stuff that will be available. So we've kind of we've shot ourselves in both feet, and we better get on with dancing, I suppose. The next gigs that we've got are starting in August, where we're out in Cologne at the thing called the Bazaar Festival. Then we do V2000s, and then we're over at Pukkelpop and Lowlands in Belgium and Holland. Later, then we go to Japan, where we're doing an event in Tokyo. Probably go to America, and we're looking at taking the show over to Dublin, which will probably be around November. I think there's a party up in North Wales that we're probably going to, I'm sure we're going to do, because it's got the word party in front of it. That sounds like a laugh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's enough, actually. I mean, there's so much that gets put to one side. You know, Rick's label, Bungalow with Stairs, has been nearly ready to launch for about 12 months. I've got at least 2 books that are sat on my PowerBook that just haven't been printed and released yet. These are things that they kind of wear you away a bit, and so you have to just let go of them. We've been discussing employing a couple of people, really, just specifically to take care of those things. Otherwise, there's just going to be an awful lot of stuff left over, you know, and I don't know where we're going to put it. We need to release more stuff than we actually do, you know, and describe this thing as what it is, which is beyond a group. We'd like to have the next album finished by March next year. Everyone always falls about laughing when they hear that, because they know our track record, but that's what we'd like, you know. So let's see, shall we? Let's see how embarrassed we're going to be when. Oh, you are very welcome, and I will do this anytime you want me to come to wherever you are. I love your town. Hello, how you doing? Hello. Oh yeah. It's me doing the hello samples. The hello samples. Sample number 4. Hello. Whew, hello. Sample number 6. Hello, how you doing? Jolly friendly chap.